Hi there. Welcome to Fireside Chats. Today I'm going to share with you a story when we were stationed in Saudi Arabia. And it is about the medical doctor on the Northrop Grumman compound where we lived as a small contingency of military service members and their families. Because we were such a small unit there, we were down in the southwestern region, down near Yemen, in the farming area of Saudi Arabia, believe it or not, with beautiful mountains and terrace farms. It was nothing like it I imagined. But we got down there and we lived within a walled compound. It was an American compound, and it was closed to outsiders. There were guards at the gate, and they had to have your name and who they were and who they were going to visit to even come in to the cantonment. So Dr. Bennett was there as the medical doctor serving the clinic. It was kind of like having your own little village right there within those walled compound. And we had, a hair salon. We had a dining room area where people could meet, a mail room. We had a pool area, recreation area. It was a very nice complex there. But the medical clinic was manned by a gentleman from England named Dr. Bennett. And I'd only met him on a few occasions. He was a very nice guy, but he was, he was very intelligent and he was very British. And so he often was dressed in what people thought was a little bit strange, with his shorts, and he'd have on socks and maybe Oxford-type shoes with his Bermuda shorts, and people tend to make fun of him, and he knew it. I mean, I wasn't aware of how much he knew that, but I always, when they would say funny things about him, or that he was strange or he was geeky, he was mostly geeky, but he was always very kind to me. And it just so happened that I became, and this is a true story, a miracle in his life, what seemed like by accident, except that life has taught me there are no coincidences. I like to say it's God's way of remaining anonymous. But he knew who I was, and, we had a couple of interactions there on the compound, and I was working for a project there that was very highly visible from the Saudis. They poured a lot of money into having U.S. experts come over to Saudi Arabia and build the first national park in that Asir region down near Yemen, because it really was a beautiful area, mountainous area with these terrace farms. And so they're putting a national park there, Asir National Park. And Americans were the consultants on the project. So I had met the superintendent of that project, and he was an American. Actually, he was a Pakistani American, but he was in charge of the project there in the kingdom. And I met him at a party, and he asked me, did I know how to type? And I said, yeah, of course I do. I took typing when I was in college. And he said, do you know how to, this is before computers, guys. He said, do you know how to take shorthand? Not thinking I would say yes, but I had taken shorthand in college so that I could take notes much faster, because I'm a very visual, tactile learner, and I have to write things down. And I just excelled at shorthand. I mean, it's where you spell what you hear and you leave out vowels, and well, if you've never seen it or done it, then it won't make sense to you anyway. But I was very good at it. And so he was shocked when he said, okay, I'm going to dictate something to you. And he did that. And I could take shorthand. And he said, you're hired. And I said, to do what? And he said, to manage our office, set up our office and files and all that sort of thing. And then to be a PR person, because it's a very highly visible first national park in Arabia. And they're putting a lot of money behind it. And you can, when other, individuals come from Washington, D.C. or Europe to view the project, you can be part of meeting and greeting and taking care of them when they're here. And I was like, I've never done anything like that. I mean, I'm an educator. I'm a classroom teacher. I've never done anything like that. And he said, you'll be fine. But you do need to know that because you are a woman, we have to set up a whole separate office for you because, you being a female and you'll be in the office. So we're going to go in the morning time. We'll go over to the next village over, town, and work with our Saudi counterparts. And then we'll come back in the afternoon and you'll take dictation and you'll transcribe things and you'll set up our filing system and all that kind of stuff. Well, I'd never done anything like that. But it was actually a really cool job. I never imagined being sort of an executive in charge of office management and then a PR person as well. So it was a whole different experience. Dr. Bennett, I was on my way to a business trip. And again, women back then, women didn't even drive in that country. And so to travel, without your husband or without at least your driver or someone from within your family being there to drive you, to travel as a female without your family male assistant being with you was highly unusual. But I was going to Riyadh on business, and I got on Saudi Airlines, and as I entered the cab, there was Dr. Bennett sitting in the cabin, and he lit up like a Christmas tree when he saw me. And he motioned for me to come and sit down by him, which I did. And when I sat down, even though he didn't know me very well, he seemed to have this innate sense of safety with me because he just began to just share his story. I mean, it just poured out of him, out of his heart. He began to tell me why he was in Saudi Arabia and that his wife had left him and she'd taken their 4 children. And he got away from England because it was just such an intense, difficult time for him. And then he got over there to the compound and serving the Northrop personnel as well as military personnel like we were. And he realized that he was rejected by the core group. And that people did make fun of him and thought he was geeky and perhaps not even as competent as I perceived he was. He was very bright, but he was geeky. But I have always had a gift of caring and listening and encouraging. So as Dr. Bennett opened his heart and shared his story, I sensed desolation and desperation in his voice and his soul. And so I listened intently. He felt that I cared about his story. And he said, they're transferring me to Riyadh. That's the capital city of Saudi Arabia. Lots of people, very busy. He said, I don't know a soul. He said, I just feel like my life has no meaning. And that's kind of where the story stopped, but I did offer to introduce him to the few people I knew in Riyadh. And the next day I followed up, I called him and made the introductions. We got together for lunch and, I left him not feeling totally alone. Well, when I got back when Riyadh was probably a couple of hours, maybe an hour flight, but it was, a distance away from where we were down there in the southwestern Asir region. When I got back home, I got a letter from him, and he shared the rest of the story with me. The rest of the story is that had I not been on that airplane that day and been kind enough to sit down by him when he asked me to sit beside him and truly open my heart and listen to his story and his message of feeling alone and lost and that his life had no value. It's a medical doctor. He said his intention was, when he got there, was just to commit suicide. Now, he didn't indicate that to me on the plane, but he shared it to me in writing in a letter. I was astounded. God had me in the right place at the right time. I became Dr. Bennett's miracle, unknowingly, but by divine design. So my lesson here to you is that you can become someone else's miracle. You can do it by chance, there are no coincidences, or you can do it intentionally. And in my class, A Million Little Miracles lunch experience, I've done class 1. I do the second class for our community on this Wednesday, 17 September. And I have folks do an exercise, practical application of what I do teach about miracles to become someone else's miracle with intention. So if my being in the right place at the right time, serving a purpose much larger than myself, even without knowing it, just think what you can do. If you become intentional and you get up each day and you ask yourself, who can I make a difference for today? What value can I add? How am I going to add it? When? Where? What? Put it on your calendar, identify the person, and then take action. And if we learn to live like that, we can become someone else's miracle on a regular basis. I encourage it. It really warmed my heart when I realized that I had made that kind of difference in this young doctor's life. And it was even without intent. Just think what we can do if we're intentional to become someone else's miracle. You are a miracle. We're surrounded by miracles. Our heartbeat is a miracle. Our voice, our eye print, our fingerprint are unique. You're one of a kind. You're a miracle. I'll see you next week.